Welcome back. We're at part 9 of our 10-part deep dive into the tutorial IPv4 and IPv6 transition technologies, architecture, security, and firewall designs. We're really nearing the end of our journey here, and today we're focusing entirely on Chapter 9 of the source material. This chapter explores exactly why securing an IPv6 network requires a completely new architectural mindset. If you're an infrastructure or security architect currently supporting your organization's migration, this is, without a doubt, the most critical segment of the entire process. We're talking firewall design, and specifically, why the safety nets you've relied on for decades are about to vanish.
So let's kick things off with a pretty hard truth. Assuming your legacy IPv4 security posture is going to protect your new IPv6 infrastructure is a massive liability. IPv4 rule sets do not transfer. It's a short quote, but wow, the implications are huge. For years, we've all built these deeply complex, finely tuned IP tables and firewall rules for IPv4, right? It's incredibly tempting to just try and port those over to save time. But the underlying mechanics of how nodes communicate, how they discover each other, and how they're addressed, it's all fundamentally different now. A simple copy-paste approach literally leaves the front door wide open.
This crucial insight comes straight from the Chapter 9 research by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a Colorado-based technology research, education, and advisory group. Their material is laser-focused on equipping architects like you with the practical, real-world designs needed to protect your networks throughout these really complex migrations.
Here's our roadmap for today's breakdown. 1. IPv6 firewall first principles. 2. 3 areas of difference. 3. Securing NDP and SLAC. 4. The multiple address dilemma. And 5. Your essential RFC reference guide.
Starting off with Section 1, IPv6 Firewall First Principles, Rebuilding from the Ground Up.
The core reality we have to face is that you just can't drag and drop your old firewall rules. You have to build explicit policies based on the unique mechanics of IPv6. In the IPv4 world, you probably relied heavily on network address translation, or NAT, as a sort of de facto boundary layer to hide internal resources. We all did it. It was standard practice. But in IPv6, we have an absolute abundance of global addresses. That means end-to-end connectivity is completely restored. Because of that, your firewall policy can't just be implicit or rely on accidental obfuscation anymore. It must be intentionally, explicitly constructed from first principles to make absolutely sure only the traffic you actually want is permitted to flow across your boundaries.
Moving right along to Section 2, 3 areas of difference, or exactly where your IPv4 knowledge is going to fail you.
There are 3 key areas where the playing field completely changes. First up is address translation. The way we handle translation in an IPv6 transition, whether you're looking at NAT64 or other stateless variants, it changes your attack surface entirely. Second, we have ICMP-v6. In the IP4 days, a lot of admins would just blanket block ICMP to stop ping sweeps. Done and dusted. But in IPv6, ICMP-v6 is the absolute lifeblood of the network. If you drop it entirely, your network literally just stops functioning. You have to craft highly specific policies. Which actually brings us to the third major difference, Neighbor Discovery Protocol and SLAAC controls.
That takes us to Section 3, Securing NDP and SLAC, and mitigating these new threats.
So what's the actual threat here? Without explicit protections, malicious actors sitting on your local segment can spoof Neighbor Discovery Protocol, or NDP, messages. When they pull this off, they trick the other hosts on that segment into updating their neighbor cache. Suddenly, traffic that was supposed to go to a legitimate victim is redirected right through the attacker's machine. This perfectly sets the stage for devastating man-in-the-middle attacks, silent data interception, or they could just drop the packets entirely to create a targeted denial-of-service condition. It's a massive, glaring vulnerability if you leave it unchecked.
Now, if you're an experienced architect, you already know exactly how to stop this in IPv4. You'd use dynamic ARP inspection. Well, for modern IPv6, Dynamic ND Inspection, or DNDI, is your direct architectural equivalent. It's the new gold standard you absolutely must implement to protect your local segments from these spoofing threats.
To successfully deploy DNDI, you need to configure your access switches to actively intercept these NDP messages. The switch then strictly validates those messages against a trusted binding table. And how does it build that table? Usually, you're looking at DHCP-v6 snooping or carefully managing static entries. The most critical action here is that if an unsolicited neighbor advertisement suddenly comes in on an untrusted port, the switch automatically drops it, no questions asked.
Deploying this across all your access switch ports is completely non-negotiable for a secure IPv6 architecture.
All right, Section 4, the multiple address dilemma, dealing with complexity at the interface. Unlike IPv4, where a single interface generally gets, just one IP address, a single IPv6 interface hosts a massive array of addresses all at the exact same time. It's kind of like a crowded room. You have your link local address starting with FE80, which is strictly for local segment chatter. You've got your globally unique address, or GUA, providing the main public identity. You might even have unique local addresses for internal routing, and crucially, you have temporary privacy extension addresses constantly spinning up for outbound connections. Your firewall has to account for and securely track every single one of these distinct types.
And this brings us to a really serious security warning regarding source address selection. Because a host holds all those different addresses, it uses RFC 6724 to figure out which one it should actually use when reaching out to the internet. And very often, it's going to favor that temporary privacy address over the GUA for outbound connections. So think about this. If you, as the firewall admin, only write your egress filtering rules to target that primary GUA, an attacker, or even just a compromised internal host, can completely bypass your firewall simply by initiating their outbound connections using their temporary address. You have to secure the entire neighborhood of addresses on that interface, not just the primary resident.
Finally, Section 5, your essential RFC reference guide. This is the architect's playbook. Look, you can't just guess your way through this implementation. You need the exact authoritative IATF documentation to build these designs properly. You're going to want to bookmark these 5 standards immediately. You've got RFC 4890, which spells out exactly which ICMPv6 messages are safe to filter and which ones will break your network if you drop them. You have RFC 6105, which details router advertisement guard to stop rogue routers in their tracks. And you have RFC 9099 for your overarching operational security. These are not just light-reading suggestions, they form the absolute bedrock of any secure, enterprise-grade IPv6 deployment.
So as you review your architecture today, I want you to look really closely at your boundary edges. Ask yourself, are your current firewall rule sets truly securing your IPv6 network, or are they just providing a dangerous illusion rooted in legacy IPv4 habits? This shift requires explicit policy, a deep understanding of NDP threats, and mastering the multiple address dilemma. Take these first principles back to your engineering teams today. And definitely join us next time for Part 10, where we're going to wrap up this entire series by transforming all of this technical analysis into a concrete, actionable rollout plan. See you then.